Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Chuck Everson, and welcome to the Big East Rewind. And my co-host today, as always, from Syracuse University, Dr. Sonny Spera is in the house. How are you, Sonny?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing today?
I'm great because today we have a really good show. And
yeah, can't wait.
Let me ask you a question. I'll start it out by asking you a question, Sonny. What is the most exciting play in basketball, whether it's 35 years ago or today?
Well, I know what it finishes like. It's the dunk, baby.
It's the slam dunk. That's right. The high flyers. And we got two of the greatest high flyers in Big East history. I would say if you had a Mount Rushmore of dunkers and guys that played above the rim, these two guys would definitely be on it. Would you agree with that?
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, absolutely. They play a game that I'm not familiar with.
No, you and I never had to worry about that. I just had a longer reach. That's how I got rebounds. I didn't jump. So, Sonny, go ahead and introduce your buddy from your teammate.
All right. This one is going to be a fun one. This is a good friend of mine from Monte Cristi in New York City, Astoria area. Legendary New York City player. Playgrounds in the schools. Consensus All-American coming out of high school. Probably at the time was the biggest recruit Syracuse ever had. And when he came on campus, we had a new rock star. Number 30, Tony Bruin. Tony Red.
Dr. Sonny, thank you for that introduction.
Looking good, man. And from Villanova University, a good friend of mine, and we've been through a lot, been through all the wars together, the ups and downs and everything in between, from Holy Name High School in Worcester, Mass. The D-Train, Dwayne McClain, one of the most gifted, most athletic guys I've ever had the pleasure of playing basketball with. How are you, Train?
I'm well. How's everything going, guys? Nice to see you, Red.
Good to see you too, man. Hope things are great.
Right?
Long time goes fast.
It sure does.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while since we saw you guys. Well, Dwayne, you and I talk quite a bit, but it's been a while since we've seen Tony, and I'm sure you haven't seen Sonny in a while. It's been, it's nice that we're doing these things because you get to see guys that you played with and guys that you were friends with and maybe haven't been connected with in a while. So we had some other guys on yesterday, Raphael and Dwight Wilbur, and they hadn't seen each other in 12, 13 years. So it was kind of cool to connect everybody like that,
Nice.
I think the last time I saw you, Dwayne, was in Houston.
That's right. That's right. It sure was 2016.
Yeah, the Orange were there with us in the Final Four.
Yes, they were.
And Sonny hung around for the final game. We had to make him an honorary Wildcat D. So we let him hang out. He hung out with CB and I, and we had a good time with him. So
it's always a good time hanging with Sonny. Last time I saw Sonny, we were at the Syracuse alumni game. And Sonny is like best friends with everybody that owns one of those booths. So we just ate so we couldn't eat no more.
Yeah, he does all right.
It's who you know, right?
I don't know how he keeps his boyish good looks like that, Tony, eating like that at all the games,
I never skip a meal.
Yeah.
Let's start out, guys, from the beginning in high school. Tell us a little bit about your high school careers. Red, you first. Tell us a little bit about you growing up in Queens and playing in the leagues, the AAU circuit or the camps, whichever way, however you got recruited. And tell us a little bit about your career as you were coming up.
Well, things back then were a little more crazier than what they are now. Somebody looking out now would think it's like the Wild Wild West. There wasn't all of the restrictions on coaches as to how many times they could come see somebody play. Like kids now will have kind of allegiance to a certain AAU program. Back then, I might play in a tournament with the Gauchos one week. The next week, I might play with the Riverside out of town with Elm Court. Things were a little bit different back then. And the main thing in New York was you're always trying to prove yourself. Every time you went to a tournament or played with somebody, because the way people gained the writing back in the city in those days was whoever the big talk was about, you had to go play against them and do one better. So things were, just a little more chaotic, but I think I got most of the attention after I had a real good week at five-star basketball camp, one of Howard Garfinkel's camps. And I think before I even got back home, when I walked in the door, my mother said, "Man, you must have like 50 letters from colleges here," and it just expanded from there. So I'd have to say, Garfinkel's camp and guys like Tom Konchowski coming to see us play did a lot of helped a lot, and people knowing about myself and the programs I was playing with. I played against some great players and with some great players, and that helped a lot too.
Well, we recently lost Tom Konchowski. He was one of the best in grading players and rating players. And I it's amazing if you talk about him for a second, because it's amazing. The guy didn't own a car, right?
Exactly.
He was not. He had no cell phone, no computer, no internet. But he had the reports done and out to the coaches. And if he said you were, this rating, then the coaches all knew that that's exactly what you were, correct?
Exactly. One paragraph from Tom Konchowski could put you on the map nationally. Yep. I mean, if he gave you a good review without even being seen, it was worth probably 25 to 50 letters from colleges saying that they want to interest in you and fill out their questionnaire. He was that good, and he was that well respected. And like you said, back then it wasn't no computers and internets. His mind was the internet. I mean, he had a magical memory. Just think how many guys Tom has seen play, and he knows everybody by name. He can see you play 1 week and might not see you for 3 months later, and he could probably tell you not only your name, but everybody that was on the team when he first seen you play. I mean, he was that magical, man. He was the real deal. They don't make him like Tom no more.
No, you're
and that's just talking about him professionally. As a person, I don't think I've met anybody that has the type of clout that he has that was such a nice guy. I mean, generally a nice guy, not phony, not one of those guys that pat you on the back and then go talk about you around the corner. He was just generally a nice guy, man.
Now, Red, you had established a reputation as the guy, right? You were like one of the guys in New York City. So I would imagine that every game, every night, everybody's coming at you and everybody was trying to make a career, right, out of playing against you. And you mentioned that. Now, is that something that happened mostly during high school, or was that something that happened in off season?
Well, to be honest about it, Sonny, it kind of happened weirdly, if that's a word I can use, because before I even really knew all the skills and intricate things of the game, I was blessed athletically with probably like a 44-inch vertical jump or something. So when I first started learning the game, I was doing things that people were like, amazed with. But to me, just learning how to play the game and not really knowing, I thought everybody did those things. So I was getting kind of a reputation for somebody that was doing freakish things before I even really had the aspect of the whole game together. And then as I started getting around some great coaches that taught me how to use my gifts and everything like that, that's when you said I kind of got marked as the person that people wanted to go up against, because that's just how New York City guys is. If you're hearing about somebody, then you want to prove yourself against them or test them. So I learned early on that it's not going to be any games off, because people were coming at you with 100%, everybody was trying to, if you get an accolade, if you make all New York City or, all Catholic school first team, somebody that feels that they should be there, they're coming to make their reputation off of you. So you never really get a rest any game. I mean, even a pickup game, in your neighborhood, people are trying to come at you.
How about you, Dwayne? How did you get started playing?
Well, back in Worcester, Massachusetts, it was, about 45 minutes west of Boston. I really didn't get on the map till probably my sophomore year in high school. And that was during the summer playing AAU with Patrick Ewing. Everyone, of course, wanted to see Patrick play. Mm-hmm. And if you performed well around Patrick, they took a little notice. But what happened, more or less, which really got me on the map, was in my junior year in high school, we played against them in the state finals against Cambridge Ridge and Latin. Mm-hmm. And they beat us because they had a phenomenal team, but I dropped 38, and that put me on the map. So like Red said, every night you play, someone's coming at you. And as great as Patrick was, and we gave Patrick his respect, because I love Patrick. We played AAU together growing up, but playing against him, you had to come with your best. And I'm just happy that night. Speaking of Tom was actually in the stands that night, and put a scouting
everywhere.
Put a scouting report out on me, which again, like you said, Red, rave reviews. His word, when he put his stamp of approval on you as a 5-star athlete, it went big, and that's when the letters started pouring in as well. So my gift was probably attaching my wheels to Patrick Ewing.
Well, I'm not just saying this because you're here. As great a player as Patrick is, with his size and everything, you're the type of player I would pay money to see. I mean, you're exciting players, Dwayne. I mean, with your quickness and jumping ability and the way you would innovate in the air and stuff like that, I'd pay money to see you play.
I tell you, trying to get some things over Pat, I had to get creative. But I'm telling you, Red, coming into the Big East, it was players like you that made me want to come into the Big East. See what you guys are doing up in Syracuse and the way you were banging on everybody. I'm like, damn, I want to be a part of that. And
I'm happy for that. But you're definitely somebody I would pay to see play. You're really exciting.
Red, I got to ask you, right? Because you were 2 years ahead of Dwayne, I believe, right? So was the Big East was just a concept, right? Was that a factor in your selection of Syracuse, or was it just, hey, I'm going to go to Syracuse and then, oh yeah, we're going in the Big East? Where was the Big East in all this? It
was Coach Boeheim talked about the Big East to me in my recruiting process, and I was happy that we were going in the league. But I have to be honest, the Big East was going to be what it ended up being. I mean, I was half independent, and you would grow up watching the ACC and the Big Ten and everything, and and when schools will recruit me, they tell me about the power of their league, so it had its appeals. But when Coach would talk about the Big East, I was like, well, I'm glad we're at least going in a conference too. But I wasn't expecting it to become a conference that would, I think, in its heyday, like when we first started and the way things were going, I think we became bigger than the Big East. I mean, the ACC and some of those other leagues at that time, because if I'm getting older, my memory's going bad, but I think we had 4 teams or something like that in the final 8 at that point or something like that. We had more teams left. And we were just kind of starting out. So I had no idea that the Big East was going to be as huge as it got when Coach Boeheim was talking to me, about the future, that we were going to be going into a league, called the Big East and everything.
But I got to think though, Red, as you're a highly recruit, you're a highly sought after recruit. You come to Syracuse, all of a sudden, guess what? It's no longer you got to go to LA, you got to go to West Coast. You can stay in this area, and we could create something special here. So I think that kind of was part of the start of it. I think Patrick and Chris and Ed, and I think all those guys coming in just solidified it,
I would like to believe that I had a little bit to do with that. And Coach Boeheim always used to impress upon me that, don't worry about the fact that we're not known for big All-Americans and everything, that, he gets a lot of joy out of getting players and bringing them to their full potential. But he would talk about how he thought I would open the door for more New York City players to come, or maybe a higher profile player to come. But and I'm glad Chris Mullen and guys like that decided to do it. But I think the allure of watching us on the Big East Monday night of the game and seeing guys, Dwayne McClain. I mean, I think that was what piqued me. We said, man, wait a minute, I can stay home, not have to go to North Carolina or Duke or Indiana or Louisville or something like that. I can stay home and my parents can see me play and my friends can see me play, and I still get all the publicity on TV just as well in a big time conference. I'm going to do that. Look at these guys, and it was guys that everybody grew up watching play, like Dwayne was right there, in Massachusetts and stuff. And we're here in Queens, and Ed Pickney went right to Villanova. And I mean, it was all this, everybody just kind of stayed because the same thing was here for you, Why leave home if you don't have to,
Right.
Yeah. So, and Dwayne, what about you when you're making your decision to come to Nova? What factored into that decision?
Well, it was definitely what Red mentioned, having the opportunity to stay home and play in front of your friends and family. Prior to that, a lot of the East Coast talent was running elsewhere. They were going to the ACC. They were going to the Big Ten and those conferences, Big 12.
The coaches that were having the most success, Dwayne, was the coaches that had New York City or big city, like Philly or Boston pipelines,
That's right. They were keeping their local kids, right? And once the East Coast coaches kept their local kids, that's when you see St. John's with a full house. You see Syracuse with a monster squad. Even Boston College had a reputable program, So the Big East did wonders.
Yeah, and then Seton Hall and Providence. I mean, they all, they kind of all elevated. Everybody sort of raised their game. The bar got bigger, higher and higher and higher. That's what I think.
And then, Sonny, you got to add to the fact that then they put the requirement that you got to play in big arenas. So now we got St. John's playing in Madison Square Garden. And of course, we had the 35,000 seat dome. Villanova's playing, in the Sixers arena and the Palestra and everything. And Seton Hall goes over, to where the Nets were playing. I mean, it just blew up.
Now we interviewed Coach Raftery. You know what he said? he said,
wanted to stay in the
no, yeah, he wanted to stay in Walsh Gym, but Boeheim said, no, we ain't coming back here. We need to put a number on that.
That was the smallest gym I think I've ever played in, man.
That place was rough.
Don't tell Dan Dunn that. I hated that gym.
That was a big home court advantage. I thought the Palestra was a big advantage for these guys too.
Yeah.
I didn't like playing in there.
Those were some great days, man.
Did we lose Dwayne, Sonny? Did he cut out?
He did. He'll be back.
Okay.
So Red, let's continue. So you decide you come to Syracuse. You're a part of the first, right? If I'm not mistaken, you're the rookie class of Big East freshmen, correct?
Yeah, I think so. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now the conference, is growing. And what was it like when all of a sudden the travel and the games just intensified, right? There's not a lot of cupcakes on the schedule. What was your feeling about the level of competition now?
It was different because you just didn't know what to expect. But at the same time, a lot of the guys that we were playing against were guys that I had saw, in the 5-star camp circuit or the AAU circuit, or travels from playing in different all-star game, like the McDonald's all-star game and the Simcoe Round Ball Classic. So being that, the Eastern kids were pretty much the same, it was guys that I knew, which made me feel good, but it was just at a higher level. In high school, sometimes you might not have 5 guys start in the starting 5 that you got to worry about every single person. You might be able to, you might play a team, well, this guy's not going to shoot, he's just going to pass, or this guy's not a scoring threat or whatever. I mean, what was different was, everybody, in the Big East that was recruited could really play. So, you couldn't let your guards down at any time. And you know how Coach Boeheim was, even in practice doing layups, he wanted you to go like 200%. So it was kind of an awakening,
Welcome back, D.
Thank you. Talking about the Big East got me excited.
So Dwayne, get back to your recruitment a little bit. Tell the story about how you hooked up with Gary and Ed.
Red hit it right on the head. 5-star basketball camp.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Now, Red, were you in Holmesdale or did you go to Pittsburgh?
I was in Holmesdale, yeah.
Holmesdale. Yeah, same here. And that's
As a matter of fact, Dwayne, I'm gonna tell you a funny story. The first coach that ever yelled at me was Rick Pitino. He was my coach in Holmesdale, and I think there was a situation where there was a loose ball on the floor, and the other guys died for it, and I kind of did one of these bend jobs, and that was the first time. He said, "God damn it, I don't care who you are, blah, 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 red one. The next time there's a ball on the floor and you don't go die for it, you're going to be on the bench with me for the rest of the week." And, that's the my way of what he said to me, and that's when I realized,
that's the G-rated version.
What it's going to be like.
Yeah, 5-star, not only was 5-star known for having excellent players, the best players in the country, their coaching staff was outstanding.
Exactly.
I believe at that time, Pitino was at Boston University.
Yep.
And Mitch Bonaguro was my guy who yelled at me for the first time at 5-star.
Yeah.
So the coaches they had there were fantastic. And that's where I hooked up with Gary and Ed. Because at the time, right, we couldn't afford to pay, so we were, helping out in the kitchen. And,
I was a waiter too. I was
definitely a waiter as well. Right? So when we went back to our dorms, that's where we all connected. And going back to the dorms, I got to meet Ed, who was from the Bronx, and Gary, who was from Long Island, but he went to high school in Massachusetts, and I didn't know him from Massachusetts, and I knew him from from the camp. And after we parted ways, we kept in touch.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't realize is Patrick was at that same camp. And to this day, a lot of people don't realize when Patrick had it down to 2 schools, it was Georgetown and Villanova.
Okay.
Those were his last 2 selections.
Wow.
So I was trying to get him to come to Nova, of course. And he selected Georgetown.
Man, I'm glad he didn't go to Villanova. You guys probably would have never lost a game.
Yeah, right?
It was tough enough with him at Georgetown.
Yeah, he had an outstanding career there. But yeah, I mean, that's where I first connected with Eddie. And because Eddie was all slated and signed, ready to go to Providence.
Yeah.
He had committed verbally to Providence. You know?
I think Ed told everybody he was coming because he had me thinking he was coming to Syracuse. So I think that's something Ed did to everybody, man. I'm gonna have to talk to him about that.
Yeah, he keeps everyone happy. But yeah, that was the day. 5-star basketball camp. And again, you're talking about the best talent in the country all playing together, getting to know each other. And the beautiful thing about that connection and making those relationships is they lasted once you left the camp.
Exactly.
Even though we didn't have Twitter or, DMs and the rest of it, we stayed in touch with people, and that was pretty neat.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I find that now that we have social media and Facebook and Instagram, and I'm in touch with more guys that we played with in the Big East that I didn't even really meet before, that all of a sudden now, because of that bond, because you went through all the same battles and wars together, or against each other, it forms that bond. So there are guys now that I've talked to that, I haven't really officially met in person, but have good relationships with them, either texting or talking.
Yeah, we've all had the same similar experience, so that's one thing that bonds us,
And that's kind of how this whole thing came about that we're doing is, from all the Big East stuff that we talked about together. This thing that we're doing just came out of all of that, and it's been pretty cool connecting with everybody.
Yeah, what also I think is pretty neat, like, on that note, real quick. Even though, I'm Villanova, Red Syracuse, guys, Patrick's at Georgetown. As much as we battled each other and competed against each other, whenever a Big East team was playing against an ACC team on TV or a big team, we always cheered for that Big East squad to do well, So there was such a respect amongst the conference teams itself within, supporting each other in that manner. We had a lot of respect for the conference.
Yeah, respect was key. You're right.
I got to ask you guys both a question, right? Because Red, when you were a freshman, I think was the very first year they had the hanging on the rim technical for a dunk, right? And I remember watching the game, and I remember you just had just a normal two-hand slam for you, a normal two-hand hammer. And I remember, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Froggy Papera. He running in and he's calling a technical, and it was just like ridiculous interpretation of the rule. Did either of you guys find that when you played that the refs just weren't ready for that kind of athleticism?
I'm not sure if they weren't ready, or it just seemed like it was some weird calls early on. Maybe they weren't used to seeing it on such a consistent base from so many players. And it took them a while to really normalize it. For example, if you watch a college game, you may see maybe 4 to 5 amazing plays. I mean, plays that just make you jump out your seat and go, wow, how did he do that? But then if you watch an NBA game, I mean, it's sick. I mean, 16 out of 20 plays is incredible. And until it gets normal, you might not even, they might not comprehend what they're actually watching at that time. I don't know if that makes sense or not. They were still not really sure what's the goaltender. To watch Patrick go up and block a shot, until you get used to seeing it and realizing how easy it is for him, a part of his repertoire. It may look like a goaltender to you, but then after you see him play a few times and you realize, that's what he does. If you don't get it up to the apex and get it there before he comes, he's going to block it. You know what I mean?
So now that Sonny opened the door on that question, let's talk about the dunks for a minute, okay? I've always wanted to know, and Dwayne and I have talked briefly about this, but never really got into this subject, okay? What is the mentality when you guys are coming down the floor, or you're looking for a Pearl or a Gary McClain to throw you an alley-oop or whatever, okay? What is the mentality as you're coming down the floor? Are you like, okay, I got this guy, and you line up the guy to get dunked on, or is it something that just happens, And I know, Dwayne, and we'll get into it, but I know before I got there, your freshman year, you guys had a chart, man. You and Eddie had a chart, right? Of dunks.
Dunks in the locker room, yeah.
Yeah, so I know there had to be some kind of setup to that, right? I mean, when you're in a game situation.
Well, I don't know about for Dwayne, but I think a lot of our things were set up starting in practice, because when you practice with guys, 2.5 hours a day, every day, we get to know each other's moves and styles, where we like to get the ball, what our apex is and stuff. And I've got to use Leo Routon, for example. After so many practices and playing with each other, he would just give me a look, and I would know that, oh wow, I must be in a position that if I keep going, he's going to be able to throw it up to me just by a look. With him playing against, he threw me an alley-oop one time from half court, and the only reason I had an idea was I was running my lane. You know how we always have our numbered break and everything. Right. I'm in my number 2 lane, which is always the right side for me, and I see Leo looks up, and I said, no, wait a minute, that's that look he gives me when he's about to throw. Oh, but he's not even over yet. And I just said, you know what, let me just speed it up. And sure enough, he threw it before, like he was about 2 steps before half court and just threw it up right where I liked it. And I was able to grab it and go ahead and put it down. So I know for me, as guys just learning your style, like I can imagine Gary McClain probably knew where D likes it and everything, and probably had a good chemistry and stuff like that just by practicing with you every day.
Yeah, again, with Gary, that connection came at 5-star basketball camp,
right, Right.
So it was just more than the 2 hours a day we were spending on the court as teammates. Mm-hmm. And that's what I guess I fell in love with his style of game at camp, way before college.
Yeah, he was a workhorse.
How gutsy he was, how tough he was. He's a New York kid from Long Island. And that propelled me to want to play with someone like that. And then, of course, everybody know what Easy Ed brought to the table.
Yeah.
You can sleep on him if you want, but he was getting the job done. And,
exactly.
His laid-back nature, even at camp, he had the same laid-back nature, but when he stepped on the court, he came to play. Yeah. And just the chemistry you have with your teammates is so important.
Yeah.
Red, now you were explosive off of 2 feet, right? Dwayne, I think you had the ability to do either. I think some of the ones I remember, it was just a 1 foot, and then it was kind of like going up the stairs.
You gave him that 1 foot on that left side. You might as well just go out the way, man.
Right?
Yeah.
I was just trying to get there at the end of the day. And I was telling Chuck, we had conversations before. Like we would walk into a gym and I would look at the other team and see if they had 7-footers. Mm-hmm. And my only reason for that was like you, I'm sure you did the same thing, Red. Like I can't wait to dunk on this dude.
Well, that's what I was getting at with the question is, do you have that mentality that I'm going to posterize this guy, or is it something that just happens when you're in the course of a game? Do you know what I mean?
No, with me, I go in the game with the mindset to try to get everyone.
Right.
That's taking bodies at the end of the day. So yeah, you want to put everyone on that list.
Why be selective, man? If they're in my way, right. It's going.
He's an equal opportunity offender.
Yeah, and it made no difference who it was.
It's coming. Get out the way.
I think a lot of times, big guys, though, to be honest with you, Sonny, sometimes your reputation precedes you, and just to make sure that they know it's real, I think if you get one early, after that, they don't really go after you too much. They kind of, act like they're not in your way or find a reason to move away. So if you can catch one of them sleeping early and they say, oh, it's true, he goes to the basket looking to dunk. Big guys are not really trying to get dunked on too much.
Right.
Oh, no. They don't want to be on that poster.
Yeah.
No. And there was some good ones, Dwayne. I mean, I remember a few, speaking of big guys, I hate to even say this, but you had some practice dunking on big guys with a guy named Wyatt Maker and myself have been under a couple of them.
But even before you, Chuck, when I got there, John Pannone was our center, right?
Oh, yeah, I remember Big John.
You remember Big John? And in practice, John knew I came in as a high flyer. Mm-hmm. And in practice, he was like, Mooley, you are not dunking on me. John's exact words. And every time I would go to the hoop, he would hit me.
Yeah.
He would hit me. But one day, one of those random practices, someone took a shot. John looked at the rebound. It came off the rim. And the only way I got him was to catch that off the rim and put it back on him. But other than that, as far as me having the ball, gathering myself, or getting in transition and trying to dunk on John Pannone, he was not having it.
Well, you know how I just said your reputation precedes you? John Pannone is one of those guys I would really not try to dunk on because I could see him breaking me in half, but,
Oh, yeah.
He was one of the strongest guys that I remember playing against in the Big East. him and Otis Thorpe. I don't think I played against two stronger guys than those.
Oh, Otis.
Otis,
It's legendary.
He was like a man-child in the promised land. I got to tell you, man.
he was.
And like you just said, Red, I mean, it's not like today. If you came down the middle, if you beat somebody off the dribble with coming down the middle, you were going to get hit, no matter what, right?
Exactly.
I mean, back in the day, it's not like today where any touch is a foul. If you were coming down the middle, man, you had to really be leery of that too.
Yeah, you remember Big Chuck from Connecticut? Alex
Sinis. Yeah.
Oh my God. He hit me one time. It must have been a concussion. Back then, we just thought, take it off. I was seeing bright lights, and I mean, it was like I felt like I was in Disneyland for a minute, man. And then
him and Corny Thompson, they had a pretty good inside game.
Mike McKay wasn't skinny either.
That's true. D, what were some of your more memorable dunks that you've had at Villanova?
Jeez.
Take your time.
I think, there's so many to choose from. I know.
No, playing against Pitt at the field house one day.
Go on. Yep.
I got out in transition, and a 6'9" dude tried to take a charge. And what we do, Red, when 6'9" is stepping your way, you jump over him, right?
You got to jump over him, and then you won't have no problems the rest of the game after that,
And Dwayne's
step to the side,
being humble because that game there was like 3 feet of snow, Sonny, in Philly, and they were going to cancel the game, but Pittsburgh was already down the street at the hotel, so we played, and they just let the student body come in. You sit wherever you want, just fill the house. So everybody, it was an off day from school, so everybody came in. Everybody was hammered when they came in. The place was as loud. I mean, at the cat house, the old cat house, Jake Nevin, and the place was loud as hell. Dwayne came down and went over, and there's a picture with the referee is so in shock, he took the whistle out of his mouth. It was like, oh my God, as he came, he couldn't call a foul because he took the whistle out of his mouth, and Dwayne just put it right over Miklasevich's head, and that was it, man. Yeah, that was a good one. That was probably my favorite one.
Red, you got to tell us, man. Give us some of your top dunks, please.
Red got too many. He got too many.
I really don't remember too many. I tell you what, the one dunk that you would think that's all I did in my career, I guess, is the one over Patrick on the baseline, because no matter where I go, it might even be somebody that's too young to remember us playing, and somebody says, oh, this guy here, he's Tony Bruin, he played this. Oh, that's the guy that dunked on Patrick Ewing. So I guess if that's what I'm known for, and that must be my best dunk or something, I don't know.
That was on the baseline.
Yeah. But
nothing against Phi Slamma Jamma. You don't have anything.
No, that was just a great game, wasn't it, Sonny? I mean,
that was a great game. That was another thing of the Big East too. You typically got some really nice key Saturday, Sunday matchups. Like here we are playing Houston. One year we play Oklahoma and Villanova. I know you guys played UNC. I mean, you played some marquee teams on these weekend, the CBS Sports with the CBS Sports cap everybody wanted. I mean, those were the games, right?
Yeah. I remember one time, I think it was against Houston, Clyde had stole the ball at half court, and Gene came trying to cut him off diagonally. And Clyde just crossed, and right after the cross, he took one step, and he must have just been from the foul line. And I looked up, and you just seen like his whole shoulder over the rim, and slams it down. So I'm behind him, and he turns around, and he kind of tosses the ball at me instead of the referee, and looked at me like, yeah. So I think we came down, and somebody set a high-low screen for me, and I went back door, and they threw me an alley-oop, and I made sure that I turned around and threw the ball back at him. Like little things that kind of stand out in your mind, memories.
I thought you'd remember something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were some great days, man.
And of course, whenever something happens like that, a big dunk where everybody oohs and ahs and it ignites the crowd, that's when it starts a run for your team to go the other way. I mean, what's that feel like to know that you triggered, a big run, a comeback run, or something to even bring you even further ahead in the game? That's got to be a great feeling as you're running back on defense, right?
Dwayne, you want to take that?
I mean, no doubt. I mean, we started this session by saying that the dunk is the most exciting play in the game.
Right.
Yeah.
And whenever you get, Red dunking on Patrick, it doesn't get any bigger than that. Patrick, one of the #1 pick in the NBA draft, a surefire Hall of Famer, and to catch a body like that, of course that's going to excite your team and is going to pick you up. So yeah, you looked at you wanting to make plays like that just to lift your team up, and again, another notch on your belt.
That that's a good question too, because that was one of the things that a lot of people were afraid of when we were going to be leaving out of Manley Fieldhouse, which every game was sold out. And I mean, the atmosphere and the pitching thing was always like just totally crazy. And they wanted to know if we were going to be able to transition that same emotion over to the Dome. And, how you go from, a 10,000 seat arena that's always sold out to the roof to go into a 30,000 plus arena, that's, in Syracuse is always snowing, always cold. If you don't fill it up, it's just going to be like a big empty building. But, we started winning, and Leo started throwing me alley-oops, and Eric started hitting shots from all over. And, the fever was there. That was one worry that people used to say. I'd see it in the Syracuse newspapers. It's not going to be the same as the Manley Zoo. So I was happy. And like you said, how could the crowd not go crazy, when we had an exciting team like that? You guys had just an exciting team too, with the style of play that you guys had. And I would pay just to see Roley on the sidelines, man. He was worth the price of admissions by himself. Sometimes I catch myself looking at him in the middle of the game and start laughing at Stuart Granger, saying, "Man, you got a crazy coach." It was fun.
Now, D, was there anything in that? You guys played a big game in 1985. I can't remember. It was against Georgetown. I think it was maybe a national championship game. Yeah. Is there any memories come out of that? Maybe.
Yeah, we start. How about that? We had 3 Big East teams in the Final Four.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah,
with St. John's and ourselves in Georgetown. But yeah, again, we were talking about bringing that tournament back to Madison Square Garden instead of playing it in Lexington, Kentucky, because it was that heavy with the Big East fever. Mm-hmm. But yeah, a great game in '85. And as you know, Red, when you're playing against the Georgetowns, the Boston colleges, you're not afraid of those guys. You respect them.
Exactly.
Because they're
competitive.
I think that
was the game that I was talking about with you guys, that everybody was talking about how the Big East is the best league in America. That's when you guys are in, all in the Final Four, and Mark and all you guys with St. John's and stuff. That was the year that you guys really put Big East as the premier conference, Yeah,
you're right. And the year before that, Georgetown had won it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So the conference, to have Georgetown win it finally, because Patrick's freshman year, actually Patrick's 3 years, he went to the Final Four 3 years.
Yeah. I didn't even realize that. Yeah.
So his freshman year, they lost.
Freshman year was Carolina. Yep.
But he helped put the Big East on the map.
And he's a good friend of mine to this day. Fred, he made the mistake of, I guess, Worthy did the little fake out thing, and he thought it was, I don't know who he thought he was, but he thought it was somebody on Georgetown, and passed it to Worthy. And if it wasn't for that right there, they might have won that game.
Yeah, there's plenty of time on the clock. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got it. What was great, though, actually, was when they did win it, you could see the John Thompson, Fred Brown connection.
Yeah.
Right?
It was an iconic shot.
A little redemption. Yeah, that was a special moment.
But, he still stood by his man, and that shows you what kind of coach he is,
Total class. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I believe Ed Pickney played with Fred in high school.
Right.
Yeah. Fred is such a good guy, both of them.
We played against them in the state finals consolation game because Matt Doherty's team from Holy Trinity beat Adley Stevenson. So us little country bumpkins from UE were playing Eddie and Freddie in Glens Falls, and oh my goodness.
You and Sean, Sonny?
Yeah, it was a dunk fest. Eddie probably had 30 dunks. I never saw that many dunks in a high school game in my life, and I was like, that's Eddie Pinkney. I'm gonna remember him. And Freddie Brown, that guy's pretty tough. And I was like, man, let's just get home, man. Let's lick our wounds and get out of here. Yeah.
So here's another thing I wanted to ask you guys about. The Big East, we talked about this with Raph a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about how Dick Gavitt did things so that guys would get along. So Raph was in charge of the coaches committee back in the day when the Big East first started. He was the president of that committee. And what Dick Gavitt would do Dave Gavitt would do would be to get everybody together and separate guys. So you have a couple of athletic directors with a couple of players, at the table for lunch and stuff. So everybody got to get to know each other, you know. And then we talked about, he did the same thing at the Big East tournament where you had guys from different teams. But the one thing that really nobody knows about, except if you played, is there was these trips that were done in the summertime. And I know you guys have both gone on at least one of them. I don't know if you've gone on more than that, but I know you guys, where you had guys from each team get together with a coach from one of the teams and go travel to another country and play their national team or a series of teams, like a globetrotting tour around.
Yeah, I went to Africa, and the coach was Luke Hornacek from St. John's.
There you go. Yeah,
who I loved. I went to St. John's basketball camp all through as a kid and everything, and it killed me not to go to St. John's. I really loved Louis, but to make a long story short, but I did get to play for him for 2 weeks in Africa, and it was a lot of fun. We had a mixed team, and I think Gary McClain was on that team as well.
Yeah. He's talked about that a lot, that trip. Yeah.
There's
Who else was on that team with you? Do you remember, Red?
Now you're giving me a test now. So I think it was like Norm Bailey, Vern Giscombe from UConn.
Yep.
And
Happy Dobbs, I think, from our squad.
Happy Dobbs was, I want to say Frank
Dobbs. Yeah.
Frank Dobbs, yeah, Dobbs. Yeah, Happy Dobbs. And so and I got to stop there with my test. But
hey, Red, you have that iconic picture of you winning, I think, an award at a game, and Carnesecca is giving you a big hug. I think you have that photo.
Yeah, that was the New York City Catholic High School Championship against Holy Cross. Then the other year, I think he gave it to us both years. It was against Tallentine. We were back-to-back New York City Catholic School champions. And that was a great league at that time. You know, we had Archbishop Malloy and Christ the King and Bishop Lachlan and Rice and all of that. So, but I had a great team. 4 out of the starting 5 all went to Division I schools. Myself, I went to Syracuse. We had Dwayne Johnson, who went to Marquette, our point guard.
DJ
Phil Smith went to New Mexico. And of course, Vern Fleming went to Georgia and the Indiana Pacers, and also played on the Olympic team with Bobby Knight. So we had a great high school team. We beat that Mount Vernon team with Rodney. They hadn't lost a game in, I think, 3 years, and we were the team that beat them. So just had a nice, beautiful, God-blessed career and a lot of fun. And
so Louis giving you the award with one hand, and then the other hand, he's like, "You're coming to St. John's. You're coming to St. John's."
Yeah, because back then the championship games were held at St. John's University, on their campus.
That's a great recruiting tool.
Yeah, exactly. He loved it. And I was really proud. We sold it out, I think, both times, like 6,000 people for a high school game.
That's cool.
Wow.
Hey, Red, I didn't realize you played with Vern Fleming, man. Because me and Vern were teammates with the Indiana Pacers.
Yeah, Vern, right under my wing.
Oh, man, yeah.
I had to pluck him in the head to get him to talk, man. He's one of the quietest you ever know. Yeah.
All right, Dwayne, how about you? What about your exploits outside the season? Did you make any trips with these Big East?
Yeah. I did go one year, and Connor Second was the coach. Lou must have liked that trip. They got him out of the town. But yeah, we had pretty good teams. Myself,
was
Mike
Ron
Adams.
Rutledge with you guys too? He was with us. Ron Rutledge, his assistant.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. Ronnie was there. Yeah, but who was Vern Giscombe was on that trip. Michael Adams. Actually, I went with Mike Moquin from Villanova. Mike was my teammate on that trip. And St. John's had their boys on this group.
Yeah, wasn't Ron Stewart with you on that one?
Yeah, that's where me and Ron really connected.
Good guy. And, he's a great guy.
Yeah, Clyde Vaughn from Pitt.
Oh yeah,
Clive. Yeah.
Yeah,
we just bought. We just started a food truck business. Really high-end,
good
cuisine, southern type foods and seafoods and stuff.
Where's he at? Where's he doing that at?
He's in the Chicago area.
Yeah, in Chicago.
He's in the Chicago area. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he did that in memory of his mom, I guess, right? That was his whole thing.
Exactly.
Oh, nice.
Good guy.
So let's talk about the Big East tournament in Madison Square Garden. What was some of your memories of talk about, what it was like going into New York City and playing under the bright lights of Madison Square Garden, the buzz of the crowd, and some of your memories from the Big East tournament. Dwayne, you go first.
Oh man, it was nothing bigger. You're in New York City. You're with the best basketball conference in the planet, and you're playing against top-notch competition every day. You know, having 2-3 games a day. Even if we weren't playing, we were there watching the other teams play. Yep. And you know they were going to be battles. You know they were going to be wars. And even looking back, if you could go back to, you know, from 81 to 85 and look at the teams that played in New York City for that Big East tournament, you know how many pros were represented? Oh. How many guys that, you know, matriculated to the next level? I mean, it was just that much talent in the conference. And a big key was that everyone was staying home now. You know, they were no longer going to UCLA, no longer going to Kansas or Duke or these other schools. They were staying home, and they were, I'll tell you, New York City, and who doesn't love New York City? Who doesn't love New York City?
Now, Red, you had a different experience, right? You had
I was going to say that.
Syracuse, Hartford, right? Did you get 2 years in the Garden or no?
I think one was heavenly and one was whatever the opposite of heavenly was. But let's start with the good. So we kind of had an up and down year, but we were a great team. We were just like right on the cusp of getting our chemistry together. I think we had like Danny Shays at center and Eddie Morse and Leo and Eric, myself, my head, Sonny, all of us guys. We were coming together, and we peaked right at the Big East tournament time, and we beat Georgetown. We beat St. John's, Georgetown, and then you guys in triple overtime for the championship.
Right.
And we didn't get the automatic bid that year. We had to go to the NIT because at that point, the Big East was so new, they didn't get an automatic bid for the championship. Oh. And I mean, we were playing perfect basketball. I think that team, had we gotten the NCAA, might have won the whole thing. We were that good, and our chemistry was clicking at just the right time.
Had a good mix. Yeah.
And actually, we lost in triple overtime for the championship game in the NIT to Nolan Richardson's
Arkansas
Tulsa team. Tulsa. What was the guy they had that was really good? The guard, 6'5", 6'6" guard. I think he played in the league for about 10 years.
Harris.
No. Come on, Sonny, you're good with that. I think he coached for a year too. It will come to me, but they had a great play. And
so that was your freshman year, was in the Dome, right? Mm-hmm. That championship was played in the Carrier Dome. The next year was
sophomore year. That was my sophomore year. My freshman year, we were still in Manly.
Okay, so junior year, it was in the Hartford Civic Center.
Is then when we went to Hartford, and we were winning the whole game for the.
Let's not go there.
Yeah, we were winning the whole game, and BC made this miracle comeback, man.
Let's not talk about it. Let's keep good. Fast forward. Get to the Garden.
So then, like, the Garden was just after that. The Garden was just, like seeing you get to go home and see your friends and playing the Mecca and everything. Right. It was just the whole atmosphere of it. It had like an NBA atmosphere to it, really, and it just doesn't get any better. So it
was tough to get tickets because Red and Jeannie, those guys got like 80 tickets for their family, and there's me. I got a big Italian family. They're all from Staten Island, and guess what, folks? I got no tickets.
When Bayhammer's recruiting New York City guys, he's telling everybody, if you ever need tickets and they come, you got them. So they all cash their chips. Everybody cash their chips in.
Nice.
Who gave you a tough time? I already know the answer to this question, but who gave you a tough time as a team? Who gave us the toughest time in the Big East tournament?
Oh yeah. It was St. John's by far.
Yeah,
it was St. John's by far, because I mean we did a pretty good job with Chris and Bill Winnington, but Walter Berry was so different, Walter was unorthodox with that left hand coming at you. And
from his hip. He shot it from down here. He
gave us the business every time. We had no answer for him. Hal Presley was like, I can't do anything with him. I can't do anything with him. And even the year we won the championship in 85, we had 10 losses in 80. You know this, Chuck, 10 losses in 1985. Yeah. And 5 of those losses were to the number 1 team in the country.
Yeah, Georgetown.
So we would play Georgetown, who was number 1, lose to them by a couple. Mm-hmm. And then St. John's would beat Georgetown in the regular season. Then we're playing St. John's.
Yeah.
And then we had to run into St. John's in the Big East tournament as well. St. John's beat us 3 times that year, easy, 15, 12. I mean, just the games weren't even close. Whereas Georgetown, with 3 minutes to go at their place, we were up and we blew the game.
Yeah.
In that year, when we played them in Philadelphia, they beat us in overtime.
Right.
But we knew we could play with Georgetown. And even once we got to Lexington for the Final Four, we beat Memphis State in the semis, and we're cheering for Georgetown to beat St. John's in that other semi game. Because we don't want to see St. John's.
Yeah. You guys know you were.
We didn't want to see them. So yeah.
You had enough of St. John's that year for sure.
No, they were loaded. Mark Jackson. Think about the squad they had.
Yeah.
They were loaded, man.
Another high flyer, Willie Glass was on that team.
Willie Glass, Bill Winnington.
Shelton Jones, I believe, was on that team.
Shelton Jones, Bill, and of course Chris.
Bruin.
I mean, they had a squad.
They were loaded, man.
Yeah,
How about you, Red? Talk about who was their toughest opponents.
My toughest individual appointment, what I would have to say was Billy Goodwin. That guy used to play defense and wear you like a glove. In terms of team-wise, Villanova and Georgetown were always tough games for us. Villanova, because, Rowley could just milk that clock, man. We'd be up 10 or 12 and it would seem like he'd have 2 minutes left and he'd make it seem like an hour somehow. It was just never an easy game between timeouts and however he was slowing the game down. He was just a master, man. I never seen anybody with better clock management than that guy with a game. Those games just seemed no lead was never safe. And if you got behind, you guys were just so good at doing what you needed to do. You didn't beat yourselves. And then, of course, Georgetown, because, and I'll say this too today, I think their model was just to foul so much that the referee would just get tired of calling regular fouls and only call the ones that were blood. You know?
They can't call all of them.
Can't call them all. That's right. That's
right.
Can't call them all.
And I truly believe that to this day. That's what they did, because all they did was hold, grab, push. And I'm not mad at them. It worked for the whole game, and the ref would have to decide actually what will he call.
Yeah.
It took a while to figure it out, right?
So those are always tough games. Yeah.
Georgetown also had a lot of talent on that side of the court as well.
They weren't just bangers or nothing like that. They had talent and
players. Yeah.
Yeah, it was always just a brutal game.
Yeah, I ended up playing again with the Pacers with Billy Martin from Georgetown.
Right.
Dave Wingate played in the league. Reggie Williams was captain of the Denver Nuggets team at one time.
Yeah.
And Patrick did his
thing. I didn't know he played with
Muggsy
Bogues, Reggie Williams in high school.
Yeah.
They had the Mather together, man.
That's crazy.
Dunbar.
Was it Dunbar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dunbar.
I seen something the other day. I didn't know that. Mm.
Yeah, they had a squad. Well, Mike and Herman came up from Dunbar, and they were sort of like 7th, 8th man. That was after you had left, but they had come to Syracuse after you.
Mike Brown, that's right.
Mike Brown and Herman Hareed, helicopter.
What are you doing with yourself now, Tony? What do you do now? I know you work with kids. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was coaching at a high school. We didn't put any winter sports in because of COVID this year. So right now, what I'm doing, I'm running a program at the Boys and Girls Club here in town with about 12 kids that we're doing virtual classes where the lesson is pumped in from their actual teacher to computer systems that we have. And, between giving them the physical papers and what they can get off the computers, we're just making sure that they still are able to go to school and trying to keep the continuity going, because some of them are at risk. And would be at a great loss if they just couldn't, be in a structured environment with their academic programs. And I'm hoping to be able to go ahead and put my AAU team back in action this year. Last year, every tournament that we're about to go to, it got canceled because of the COVID stuff. Right. So I'm hoping by March, I've got everything going as planned that we're going to have a season with an AAU program that I'm involved with my partner, the Carolina Ballers.
Okay. So you're still
it's about like we've got a lot of good Carolina. If you think about,
I said, so you're still involved with the game. Then that's good with kids, right?
Yeah. So I'm still doing AAU. One of my goals is to get these players the exposure they deserve because they have the talent. But coaches are not really coming down to Hilton Head except that unless they can fit the recruiting in with their golf trip. So I'm trying to take them to some Adidas tournaments and just get the kids some exposure. That's what I do the AAU thing for, and help with some fundamentals and development and stuff like that.
But since you've been there, Red, you're teaching these kids, right? It's not really just about this. You're teaching them the bigger picture. You're teaching them,
Yeah,
not
trying
just
to get them
on the court, off the court, everything.
exactly. That's the whole big thing because, I tell them today. I said, look at me. There's no way in the world that I thought at this point in my life I would be living off of anything but basketball money that I saved up, and that's not true. I said any money I made from playing basketball has long been gone. But you know what I'm living on right now? The money I'm making because I have a degree, my piece of paper, and I try to instill that in them. The best career you're going to have is 10 years, and a good career is 3 to 4. And then, you're still a young man. What are you going to do with the rest of your life? And just trying to get them to see the things, the when you hit that fork in the road, you can either go, the right way or the left way, and try to, hit kids to some of the pitfalls and stuff that's out there. But as you guys know, some kids is going to go in one ear and out the other, and some kids, because they know you've been there, you're not just reading them something out of a book, they may listen to what you're saying and it may help a few. But I just do what I can do with the kids that are willing to try to absorb the knowledge that I'm trying to give them.
What about you, Dwayne? I know you had a stint coaching with a guy we both know very well, right? Talk about
that's the main reason. That's the only reason I came to Florida back in 2010 was the coach with Rolly Massimino. I was working in the financial services industry, broker with Merrill Lynch, and coach called me and said I lost one of my assistant coaches, and Dennis Hobson, who went back to Ohio to coach. He said I want someone around me that knows basketball. But he said, more importantly, I want someone around me that I trust. And my question to him was, Coach, when do you want me there? I didn't ask about money. I didn't ask about anything. Because I knew when he came in my house when I was 16 years old and promised me that my relationship with him would be more than 4 years at Villanova, I believed him.
Yeah.
And to circumvent, 35 years later, I'm his assistant coach at Northwood University. So he's the reason why I'm down here in Florida, for sure.
The last time I seen Rolly actually was in Florida. I was coaching a AAU team called the Albany City Rocks, and we're pretty good. We're usually in the top 10 of the Nike Elite teams.
Okay.
And we had went to the Milk House on Disney thing, and I ran into Rolly coming out, and we took pictures and everything, and he was teasing me and making jokes about Boeheim, and he still had the sense of humor and everything. I could tell he looked a little worn maybe,
Right.
but he still had a sense of humor, and he was trying to get us to come eat with them and stuff like that. And when we started talking, it was like you would never thought that it had been so long since the last time I seen him. He just made you feel like we have been talking right along. He's a special guy.
Yeah, he sure is. And normally we watch the Super Bowl. Chuck knows this. We got a few guys that have come down every year. We watch the Super Bowl at his house down here in Florida. Mm-hmm. And even though this year the Super Bowl is going on, I'm calling his daughter and I'm calling Chuck, and I'm like, I miss you guys. Why aren't you?
Are we down there?
Yeah, and that was really noticeable this year.
Oh yeah, that's right, Chuck. You told me that, right? I think we were on a show, a podcast for Michael Graham.
Mike Graham,
radio show. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We would go down there to see him, and like Dwayne said, and then even after he passed, we continued to go to visit Mrs. Mass for a couple of days.
Yeah. That's special, man.
Yeah. So,
and Chuck, next year, talking to RC, next year, once his house gets finished from
well, he had a little
accident. We're gonna go have it there as well.
So everything. Yeah, he said he's on the way to mending the house. It's getting fixed up. I'm into that. That'd be great.
Yeah, bigger than basketball is what it boils down to, man. It's bigger than basketball.
That's special. As a matter of fact, I was just bragging on Facebook that I thought one of the things that separates our program from a lot of programs when our guys get back together again is that most of us, if you go 45 years back or so, all played for Boeheim. A lot of times you go to these things, and a lot of the players have played for different coaches, but we've all played for Boeheim because he's been there so long and still there. So we all got our Boeheim stories and all have similar situations and experiences and jokes and stuff. So I think that should make Syracuse kind of special too, or at least for the former players. And I know you guys had that same thing going with Rolly, because he had been there a while.
Yeah, and Jay too. Jay continues that tradition because he coached under Coach Mass.
Yeah, he was Rolly's assistant at one time. So he brings the same flavor.
Right. It's nice because he treats all the basketball alums as like they still play. Come to practice. You walk in the door at practice, Red. In other words, if you show up, don't tell anybody you're coming. You just show up to practice. Manager runs over and hands you a bottle of water. They get you a chair, sit right here. You're on the court with the
Yeah,
kid.
That's
Next thing you know, you're in the huddle with them as they wrap up practice.
That's what's special. And since I want to give Sonny a shout out too, because when assistant coach Bernie Fine, when he moved on from the Syracuse program, I got to give it to Sonny. He helped keep a lot of this stuff and player camaraderie alive. You know, he still called people and made sure the alumni game still kept together and made calls. And Sonny's done a lot to keep the guys in communication with each other. And I want to thank Sonny for what he did with that too. That was really special because we needed somebody to step up at that time.
Yeah, we've had good people do it before us, and good friends of Chuck and what they do at Villanova, and there's no reason we can't. And you're right, Bernie was the glue that I think held the program together. So
yes, sir. But you stepped up and kept it going, so they got more people in there that realized the value of that and got us back on track. And that's good. That's good stuff.
Yeah, we got good people. We have a head coach and every assistant played at Syracuse Fort Bayheim. I think it's the only team in the country that everybody involved with the program is a Syracuse guy.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I was just reading a little excerpt from Matt Doherty's book, and he was saying that one of the things that kind of threw him for a loop was that when they brought in Roy, that was the first time they were going out the Tar Heel family. So players take note of things like that.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I think that's a perfect spot to wrap this up. Guys, Dwayne and Red, thank you so much for being a part of the program. We enjoyed talking to you and swapping stories about the old times. And about
Dwayne, it was good seeing you, man. You know, you was a hero of mine. I used to love watching you play. You was an exciting player.
Oh, dude, you led the way for me, Red Man. So I appreciate that, brother. I appreciate it, baby.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Thanks, guys, for having me, man. I love you guys.
You got it.
Tell you what, thank you. I think my vertical went up a couple inches just by talking to you guys.
Oh,
I think I got the net now. I'm close.
Oh, man. Sonny, we love you, man.
Well, this has been the Big East Rewind with Sonny Spera and Chuck Everson. The Big East Rewind was produced by Nick Chico Chorus and by Daryl Gurney. Thanks a lot and have a great night.
Thank you.
Peace out, everybody.
All right.
All right. See you guys. Thanks, man.
Well, I'll call you tomorrow, Dwayne.
For sure. Take care.
Thanks, man. Thanks,
Hey,
Red.
take care, D.
All right. My pleasure, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Tone.
Okay.